Love in the Dark. Chapter 1. Philadelphia, located on the east coast of the United States, is one of the most exciting cities in the country. It boasts world-class art galleries, museums, and numerous historical sites, and is conveniently connected to New York City, Washington, D.C., and New Jersey's tourist attractions. Philadelphia, a city rich in greenery, is the fifth largest city in the United States and a historic capital with a strong European influence. Its suburbs are dotted with German, Italian, and Dutch communities. From upscale restaurants to tattoo parlors, from art galleries to condom specialty stores, and from luxurious nightclubs to theaters, South Street is Philadelphia's trendiest area and the best place to go at night. Lively, fun, and safe. Near the intersection of the quiet two-story red brick residential area and the bustling South Street stands a large mansion, with a garden spanning approximately 600 acres, surrounded by a 20-foot-high wall that blocks curious onlookers' views. At this moment, just after dinner, when people are out seeking laughter and joy, a small, delicate shadow appears outside the mansion's rear wall, beneath a large cypress tree that must be 3 stories tall. After looking up and examining it carefully, he takes a deep, long breath, as if he couldn't muster enough courage without it. Then, he boldly approached the base of the tree and climbed up nimbly. As he neared the top of the wall, he carefully selected a branch as thick as an arm to climb toward the wall. When he finally sat securely on the wall, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Thank goodness it didn't break, he thought, and began to peer down into the courtyard below, only to gasp in shock. Goodness! It's so high! Climbing down from a 3-story high tree is one thing, but jumping down from a 3-story high wall is a stunt. But... He gritted his teeth and made up his mind again, turning around in an awkward posture, slowly crawling, hanging from the wall. Then his little butt began to sway back and forth as he slid down inch by inch, his toes constantly searching for a foothold. Unfortunately, there was nothing but moss grown from the length of the branches, slippery moss. So, after a short, terrified scream, he closed his eyes tightly, held his breath, and waited for his butt to be smashed into 4 pieces and his spine to be broken into 1,000 pieces. Ah! Well, that's okay. Next time, he could climb walls like a snake. 2 seconds later, he realized he hadn't fallen to the ground. 2 sturdy branches had saved him, one beneath his legs and the other pressing against his back. God, Buddha, Allah, thank you. Hanging from the branches, his eyes still closed, he had only exhaled halfway when a huge question mark appeared in his mind. Strange. There didn't seem to be any trees inside the wall. At least not near the wall. He immediately opened his eyes in astonishment, and a face immediately appeared in his pupils. In an instant, he almost choked to death. A face shrouded in shadow was gazing down at him. The blurry features bore 2 eyes as cold and ruthless as a devil's, fixed intently on his face. And those 2 tree branches were unfortunately the devil's 2 strong, muscular arms. He was about to be devoured. He couldn't speak, and the devil seemed to have no intention of swallowing him immediately. Perhaps he had just finished his dinner. So he wasn't hungry yet. He must have planned to savor him as a midnight snack later. The 2 terrified eyes stared at the 2 cold glass marbles for a long time. Suddenly, to the devil's great surprise, the little person in his arms stretched out 2 small arms, wrapped them tightly around his neck like a snake, and clung on for dear life, nearly scaring him to death. And she shouted, I don't care. Unless you take me to see that I something Nan, I'll never let go. Ding Nini, just turned 20, was a cheerful, carefree young woman. She was called a little one because she was truly petite, standing at just 150 centimeters tall. By modern standards, she was quite short. Some elementary school students were taller than her. But she was content. At least I'm 150 centimeters tall, she said with a smile. Though she wasn't particularly attractive and wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, she still defended herself cheerfully, "But I'm not ugly, and I'm not stupid either." She also didn't come from a wealthy family. Her honest office worker father, Ding Wenlin, and her ordinary housewife mother, Xia Yujin, had worked hard for over 2 decades, yet they still had to pay the mortgage every month and had no extra money for luxuries. However, they were still content and happy because they had 2 adorable children, Nini and her mischievous younger brother Ding Ziwo, and the entire family could live together healthily and joyfully. For the Ding family, this was the greatest happiness. However, to the Ding family's relatively wealthy relatives, the Ding family was truly pitiful. To show their sympathy and generosity, they such as Xia Yujin's older sister Xia Yulian and her husband, her younger sister Xia Yehuo and her husband, and Ding Wenlin's cousin Ding Yushan and his wife often throw old clothes, books, furniture and other items to the Ding family with a condescending attitude. Their children then laughingly accept these items before mocking the Ding family with cold sarcasm. However, the Ding family remained cheerful and unconcerned. It seemed that their family's easygoing and contented nature was hereditary. Although Ding Wenlin had quietly worked for over 20 years and was still only a small-time director, a truly good company would not mistreat such a hard-working and loyal employee. During the Labor Day Employee Appreciation Lottery, Ding Wenlin luckily won the first prize, 2 round-trip tickets to the U.S. East Coast, including 7 days of accommodation expenses of $500 USD. It was indeed a stroke of luck, but Ding Wenlin was troubled by it for a long time. Should he go on a honeymoon with his wife? Or let the 2 children experience a taste of the outside world? Ding Nini had no great ambitions in life, but her sole wish was to travel the world and experience its diverse cultures. At the age of 10, she had already set her sights on completing her education and then embarking on a self-guided journey around the globe. This was common knowledge not only among relatives, friends, and classmates, but even Ding Wenlin's colleagues at work had heard about it long ago. Fortunately, his superior had negotiated with the company to offer a compromise: if he wished to bring his children along, the company would cover half the expenses, with the remaining half to be borne by him. That was enough. Xia Yujin pulled out some of her savings from years of frugal living and joined the Ding family in deciding to take a trip to the United States during the summer vacation when Nini was in her 3rd year of college and Ding Ziwo was in his 1st year of high school, as a reward for themselves. Xia Yulian, Xia Yehuo, and Ding Yushan, who had only traveled within Asia, were naturally not to be outdone. In the end, the 4 couples traveled together to the eastern United States in July. The not-so-pretty but incredibly adorable Nini couldn't help but shout out loud, "America, here I come!" They spent a full 4 days in New York alone. Then, the 4 couples, along with a bunch of kids, totaling 16 people, arrived in Philadelphia. After dropping off their luggage at the Travelers Inn on 20th Street, they didn't even have time to catch their breath before rushing out again. There was no choice, time was too tight, with only 3 days left. However, Lu Tianan, the husband of Xia Yulian, insisted that it wouldn't be proper to visit the East Coast without going to Washington. Ding Yushan's eldest daughter, Ding Mengwan, insisted on going to Miami to soak up the sun before returning home. Her son, Ding Hanyang, insisted on visiting Disneyland. Lu Tianan's son, Lu Qijie, insisted on seeing Cape Canaveral. Xia Yuhi was the most straightforward. She said that since they had come all this way, they wouldn't go home until they had had their fill of fun. So, the next day, at Dunton House Square in the center of Philadelphia, amidst the majestic elm trees, Victorian statues, and many children playing, the group began debating again. "If we're just going to rush through and glance at things, I'd rather spend time here at the museum or historical sites, carefully appreciating them. I don't want to run around to several cities in one day and not see anything clearly. That's just a waste of time and energy." Nini decided. Xia Yehuo's husband, Zhu Yaxiang, shook his head. "What's so interesting about museums? They're just old things people used to use. Don't you have enough of those at home?" Nini rolled her eyes and didn't comment. Zhu Yaxiang's eldest daughter, Zhu Yafeng, also criticized, "There's nothing fun here. Let's go to Miami. Let's go to Disneyland first." Ding Hanyang called out. Lu Tianan frowned. "According to the itinerary, we should go to Washington first. Washington is just as boring as here." Zhu Yafeng's younger sister, Zhu Yalai, muttered. Su Yuuru tugged at her husband Ding Yushan's hand. "Or maybe we should go to Europe instead." Ding Yushan scoffed dismissively, but before he could object, his second daughter Ding Mengqing exclaimed, "Let's go to Hawaii." "Hawaii? That's like going home. I don't want to." Zhu Yalai protested. "Then let's go to Europe. Europe is actually pretty good." Xia Yuhi nodded vigorously. "Paris, Milan, and Monte Carlo on the French Riviera." Hey, what are you thinking?" Zhu Yaxiang shook his head. "Europe is out of the question. We're not rich enough to let you go there and spend money recklessly." Xia Yuhi pouted. "I just want to go and have a look." "Have a look?" Zhu Yaxiang scoffed. "Right." Xia Yulian looked at Ding Wenlin and his wife, who had been silent the whole time. "Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you have any opinions?" Ding Wenlin smiled calmly. "You guys go ahead and have fun. We have to go back when our time is up." "How can that be?" Xia Yuhi exclaimed unhappily. "We all came out to play together, so we should go back together. Are you deliberately trying to ruin the fun?" "I'm sorry," Ding Wenlin apologized with a smile. "Our budget is limited, so we can't just go wherever we want like you guys. If it comes down to it, I'll lend you the money first, and you can pay me back monthly later," Zhu Yaxiang said generously. Ding Wenlin and his wife exchanged a smile. "We can only eat what we have. Living hand to mouth isn't easy. We're already satisfied just being able to come out once. We don't need to have fun all at once. It's nice to have something to look forward to in the future," Xia Yujin said gently. Zhu Yaxiang couldn't help but glance at them with disdain. "Fine, we'll just sightsee together for now. After you guys go back, we'll do our own thing. Anyway, you'll continue playing after we go back, so let's decide the itinerary for the next 2 days," said Luonini with a smile. "Let's go to the Longwood Gardens first. I heard it's very beautiful. We can take more photos there, then the greenhouse gardens, the clock tower, the rose garden, the water I wonder, the Italian fountain, the Roman fountain." If everyone were willing to follow Ni's itinerary completely, there would be no problem, but the other young people didn't want to waste their precious youth on boring museums, art galleries, and a bunch of old buildings. In fact, everyone else felt the same way except for Ni's family. So the next day, they split up. Ni's family happily wandered among countless works of art and classical, elegant historical sites, while the others lingered in the city's large shopping malls and clubs. In the evening, the Ni family specially went to Pat's shop at the intersection of 9th Street in South Philadelphia, had Philadelphia's most representative cheese beef sandwich for dinner, and then returned to the hotel to pack their luggage, preparing to catch an early flight back to Taiwan the day after tomorrow. The other 12 people headed to a nightclub on 2nd Street to spend a wild night. It was said that the club offered various forms of entertainment and dance performances, especially the Las Vegas-style striptease, which was very popular among the guests. Just as the Ni family was preparing to go to bed, Xia Yulian, Xia Yehuo, Ding Yushan, and the boys returned, but none of the young girls were with them. Ding Wenlin looked at the 3 couples with astonishment, their faces pale and bitter, then stared in shock at the boys with bruised faces. "What happened to you? How could this happen? Where are Yafeng and the others?" he exclaimed. He shouldn't have asked, for once he did, the 3 women couldn't help but burst into tears. "It's over! It's over!" Xia Yuhi wailed. "They've been taken away. All of them. Taken away!" Xia Yujin exclaimed in shock. By whom? The police. Suyuru wiped the tears and snot from her face. If only it were the police, but it's not. I heard it was the leader of some local family, but I don't understand it either. Anyway, they're gangsters from the underworld. The leader of the Rockefeller family, Yakano. Lu Tianan muttered dejectedly. Gang members. Goodness, how could this happen? Weren't you going to the nightclub to watch a performance? Ding Wen asked in confusion. How did this situation arise? Ding Hanyang and Lu Qijia exchanged guilty glances, while Xia Yuhi pointed at them and shouted, "It's those two." The other party was clearly intimidating, but even if they liked staring at our girls, it's just because our girls are beautiful. Looking won't hurt anyone, so why bother arguing with them? Ding Wenlin nodded in understanding. Lu Tianan couldn't help but defend himself, it's because they had a few too many drinks. Who let them drink in the first place? Xia Yuhi shouted. One just got out of the army, and the other is only 17. Why should they be allowed to drink? Lu Tianan fell silent, and Xia Yulian couldn't help but complain. What are you yelling about? When they said they wanted to drink, I didn't hear you object. What good does yelling now do? We need to figure out how to save them. Of course you can say that. Xia Yuhi cried out resentfully. At least you still have a son. I have 2 daughters who were arrested. I have nothing left, nothing at all. She sobbed. All right, let's not argue so quickly. Xia Yujin urged. You still haven't explained why they were arrested in the first place. Arguing is one thing, but why arrest them? Suyuru sighed. After an argument, if neither side is willing to apologize, it escalates into a fight. And after our men had drunk, they suddenly felt invincible, relying on their knowledge of karate or something, and started fighting with the other side. Then, in the chaos, somehow the other side's female companion ended up with a bruise on her face. Their leader got even angrier, called in a bunch of people, not only beating us to a pulp but also arresting all the girls. She sniffed. He said, since his female companion was disfigured, he doesn't want her anymore, so we have to compensate him for his losses. 5 to compensate for 1. Nini exclaimed in disbelief, didn't he study math? Plus his mental distress, time loss, entertainment loss, and material loss, Ding Yushin muttered, his clothes were torn. Nini widened her eyes. What is this? She suddenly shouted. Call the police. I don't believe they can just grab someone and walk away like that. Several people looked at each other, and Ding Wenlin looked at one person and then another in surprise. Nini is right. Why don't you call the police? Zhu Yaxiang sighed deeply. We wanted to call the police. But the people nearby kindly warned us that he was the head of one of the 4 major families in Philadelphia, and the police couldn't do anything about them. If we insisted on calling the police, the result would be waiting for their bodies. Ding Wenlin, Xia Yujin, and Nini were all stunned, while Ding Zai opened her mouth wide in shock and couldn't close it. After a long pause, Xia Yujin stammered, does that mean, we just have to? Zhu Yaxiang smiled bitterly. I asked those well-meaning people the same question. They said the police can't do anything about the head of the Rockefeller family, Yakano. The only option is to approach the other 3 major families and see if they're willing to intervene on our behalf. The 3 major families. The head of the Solankana family, Bao Anka, the leader of the Dinokola family, Sabin Li, and the head of the Taramia family, Edenan. Among them, Edenan from South Philadelphia is the most terrifying and dreaded. The other 3 major families fear him greatly. Whenever he appears, the other 3 families will automatically step aside. Then let's go find him. Nini blurted out. Lu Tianan sighed wryly. The problem is that Edenan never meddles in others' affairs. He only protects his own territory. He can resolve any issues for the residents of his district without condition, but he never interferes in issues from other regions, no matter the cost. Baoan Ka and Sabin Lee are only evenly matched with Yako, but they might still be able to assist us under certain conditions. But Udanan has his own principles. As long as others don't provoke him, he will never provoke others first. But we need his help. We're not residents under his protection. He won't bother with us. Nini wanted to argue further, but Xia Yujin glared at her and interjected, "So what should we do now?" Lu Tianan looked at the neatly arranged luggage by the wall. "We'll handle it ourselves. You two should go back quickly. There's no need to get involved in this mess." "Nonsense!" Ding Wenlin exclaimed. "How can we just leave after something like this happened? We should all work together to figure out a way to rescue them. Only then can we go back with peace of mind." The three men instinctively patted Ding Wenlin on the shoulder in sympathy. "Thank you so much. To be honest, having one more person to consult with is a comfort at a time like this." Ding Wenlin waved his hand. "Don't mention it. Let's discuss how to rescue them instead. We already thought it through on the way back. We'll split into two groups to seek help from the security checkpoint and Sabin Lee, and see if we can afford the conditions they set." "What if we can't afford it?" Lu Tianan sighed worriedly. "That's exactly what we're most concerned about. We've heard that both of them are extremely greedy, the kind who would eat you alive and spit out your bones." Nini couldn't help but interrupt again. "What about Edanan? There's no need to contact him. But you said he's the most powerful. Even if he were the emperor himself, it wouldn't matter. He wouldn't even bother to meet with us. The person who advised us suggested we give up on Edanan altogether and focus solely on Security Card and Sabin Lee, otherwise we'd be wasting our time and effort." "But... Nini, don't say another word." Under her father's scolding, Nini pouted unwillingly. "If you won't go, will I go myself?" Philadelphia has always been one of the Cosa Nostra's major strongholds in the United States. However, unlike other regions in the country, the gang members controlling the large area of connected two-story brick houses in southern Philadelphia are highly respected. Residents are well aware that it is because of their protection that the area remains so safe and peaceful. Residents could walk freely on the streets without locking their doors or worrying about being robbed. No other gangs dared to cause trouble here, there was no drug trafficking, no robberies, and no incidents of weapon-related violence. The police officers responsible for this area could relax in the station, sipping coffee and chatting, with their only tasks being to find lost cats and dogs or help lost children find their way home. The only thing residents have to pay is a protection fee based on a certain percentage of the revenue of businesses that reach a certain sales threshold. However, in the early 1980s, when Nick Schiaffo was the boss of Philadelphia, things were different. His motto was, "Violence solves everything." During that era, drugs flooded the streets, weapons were smuggled rampantly, and bodies created under Schiaffo's orders were found daily, including members of other gangs and innocent civilians. In 1987, Gary Langdon began investigating Schofield's gang, but no one dared to betray him. Everyone knew that betraying him would not only cost them their own lives but also the lives of their families. After years of investigation with no results, Gary Langdon felt utterly powerless and was about to give up when Eddie Nantalamia arrived in southern Philadelphia from Sicily, Italy, with 2 henchmen to take over the Cosa Nostra's territory. He used brutal and ruthless methods to expel Scarf's followers from the territory and then ran his own operations with an iron fist. Under his unique management, no illegal businesses could survive in his territory. Aside from collecting a small protection fee, all the businesses under his name were legitimate. He sent all his violent and aggressive men back to Italy, keeping only the loyal and brave ones. This was a very strange phenomenon. One of the 3 oldest and most powerful mafia families in Italy, the Cosa Nostra, didn't engage in illegal activities. Driven by curiosity, Gary Langdon began secretly investigating whether Edanan was genuine, and the result was that aside from collecting protection fees, which is standard mafia practice. He was a legitimate businessman who even diligently paid his income taxes. Gary Langdon was a smart man. He secretly contacted Edinen to request his assistance, and Edinen wasn't foolish either. He immediately agreed. Thus, the Nick Scarf Party was completely eradicated under their joint efforts. From then on, the Philadelphia Police Department's anti-gang measures would no longer arbitrarily extend to the South Side. In fact, even if the police were to unjustly target Eddie Nan, they would likely find no evidence against him. Moreover, the first to resist would not be his subordinates, but rather the severe protests from the local residents of the South Side. However, after Gary Langdon retired and returned to North Carolina, Philadelphia no longer had a police officer as upright and brave as him. Following Scarf, several large gangs expanded their influence from smaller gangs and began to run rampant across Philadelphia's districts. But no one dared to trespass into the South Side, not a single one. The headquarters of the South Philadelphia Cosa Nostra was a large mansion located between the bustling district and the residential area, safeguarding the tranquility of the residential area and the safety of the bustling district. On this day, an Eastern girl had been coming to the door repeatedly since early morning to see Eddie Nan. When the guards asked her what she wanted, she spoke in broken English, rambling on about various things. After a long while, the guards finally understood her meaning, but they only replied, "The boss doesn't handle matters outside the South District," and closed the door and left. The Eastern girl wandered around for a while before returning to knock on the door again, repeating the same request. "Miss, didn't I tell you that our boss doesn't handle matters outside the South District? At least go ask him first before telling me that." The Eastern girl pleaded humbly. The guard shook his head. "The result is the same. Miss. Go ask him," the Eastern girl demanded. Under the Eastern girl's stubborn insistence, the guard had no choice but to close the door and do as she requested. However, shortly afterward, he opened the door again and shrugged at her. "I told you so." The Eastern girl looked at him suspiciously. "How could it be so fast? Did you really ask?" The guard sighed helplessly. "I did ask, miss. I really did ask. Our boss is always practicing in the side courtyard at this time, and I can see him just by taking a few steps, so that's why it was so fast." The Eastern girl furrowed her brows and tilted her head, staring at him for a moment. Finally, she said, "I see. It must be because you weren't convincing enough. Let me go talk to him myself." "No way." The guard immediately cut off her wild fantasy. "Our boss won't see you." "You?" the guard interjected. "All right, I'll ask for you, but if our boss refuses, please don't keep pestering him, okay?" The Eastern girl made a muffled sound, and no one could tell if it was a yes or a no. The guard sighed and closed the door to ask again. Not long after, the guard opened the door again and said, "Go away. Miss, our boss is getting impatient." With that, the door slammed shut. The Eastern girl stared at the two doors for a long time before slowly walking away, but after circling the mansion once, she returned. Thus, under the blazing sun, the Eastern girl persistently repeated the cycle of closing the door, circling the mansion, closing the door, circling the mansion. After pacing back and forth many times, the sun gradually set in the west, and the fiery flames died out upon touching the calm, mirror-like sea surface. Stars began to appear in the sky, twinkling one by one, as if mocking her for her failed attempt. The bright moon hid behind the clouds, secretly laughing at her. Thus, her stubbornness was truly aroused. "Damn it, I must see him." So, on a moonlit night, a small figure stood beneath the massive cypress tree behind the mansion, a tree that must have been 3 stories tall, looking up intently.